So, good afternoon to all, sir. I've been asked to introduce Dr. Sharma. I don't think anybody needs introduction. Dr. Sharma needs any introduction to this. Anyway, as a routine thing, customary thing, I am introducing Dr. Sharma VSN Rachakonda. He is Emeritus Professor of Cardiology, Rajiv Gandhi Institute of Medical Sciences, Srikakulam, Andhra Pradesh. Adjunct Professor, Tamil Nadu, Dr. MGR Medical University, Chennai. Visiting Professor, GEMS College, Srikakulam. Honorary National Professor of Medicine, IMA CGP, Ex-Secretary, American College of Physicians, Indian Chapter. Adjunct Faculty, IM JSS Medical University, Mysore. MRSP Online Faculty, Taxila American University. And presently he is a consultant physician in internal medicine, Manipal Hospitals, Whitefield, Bengaluru. He has outstanding teaching skills. He has his own CME group with more than 200 doctors and had delivered 250 plus CME talks so far. He had conducted more than 15 medical workshops in various conferences and presented an equal number of papers in multiple conferences. He had delivered innumerable lectures in many universities. He has got a lot of honors and awards to his credit. He is service-minded, organizing free medical camps, helping orphanages and old age homes, etc. He has special interest in religious and philosophical literature and poetry, and regularly presents spiritual talks too. He is going to give a lecture on management of hyperlipidemia, dyslipidemia guidelines. Over to Dr. Sharma, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Ramurthy. It has been a wonderful time to be all with you. And I am not new to the forum. And for kind words, once again, thank you so much. Today we are going to discuss a very important topic that is dyslipidemia here. So, lot of change, a paradigm shift in the understanding of cardiovascular risk management. Needless to say that dyslipidemia is one of the very important risk factors of cardiovascular risk management, apart from diabetes and hypertension and smoking. Okay, these are the four important risk factors, modifiable risk factors: dyslipidemia, diabetes, hypertension, smoking. And to add to that list, there are several others like metabolic syndrome and calcium scoring and things like that, which we will see. This presentation of mine is based on two important agencies. ACC/AHA Guidelines 2019, American College of Cardiology and American Heart Association. Likewise, European Society of Cardiology, European Atherosclerotic Society, UAS. These are the guidelines developed just around 1.5 years ago, and they have been internationally validated and used everywhere. And the purpose of this presentation, using their slides, is to be a part of a teaching program of the postgraduates. And our sincere thanks to both the above organizations. There's no commercial interest whatsoever involved in using these slides. These guidelines are extremely useful in our clinical practice. So you understand here that there are different color codings. So firstly, you see in the center, the green, the yellow, the orange, the deep orange, and then you have the red. So if you see a recommendation with green, that means it is class 1 recommendation and very strong. The benefit is much, much higher than risk. If you see class 2A, that is the yellow type of background for the text there, the benefit is much better than the risk. Okay. And then if you see 2B, that is the color of the orange, light orange color, then the benefit is still greater than the risk. And class 3 is orange red, which is the benefit is equivalent to risk. And of course, when you have the strong red color, it is a strong harm. That is, the risk is much higher than the benefit. So the text itself will be coded in these colors, and you will be able to understand what level of evidence is that, what is the strength of the evidence. The next comes the level of evidence. Level of evidence is top A. Level A is deep blue. Level B is randomized trials. Level B and R is non-randomized trials. Level C is limited data LD, and level C EO is only expert opinion. That means the level quality of evidence comes down from the deep blue to light blue. Likewise, the strength of association comes down from green to red. So this is the basis of, in general, of any paper, more so here. So let us look at this. So the top 10 take home messages. Top 10 take home messages of these guidelines are, please note each one of them very carefully. So we have to promote a healthy lifestyle throughout life. Means what? Not just for 1 year or 5 years or 2 years or only when they become old or anything. The most important way to prevent atherosclerotic vascular disease. This atherosclerotic vascular disease is called atherosclerotic AVSCD, atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, vascular disease. Okay, sorry, AS, atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. Okay, so this is the understanding, and if you want to prevent atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, then you have to promote healthy lifestyle, not once, not 1 year, throughout. I was doing dieting, no question like that. You have to be on a proper diet. I was walking, no use. Or I will be walking, no use. You have to do the lifestyle measures. Second important thing is, it's a team-based care approach. A clinician should evaluate the social determinants of the health that affect individuals to inform treatment decisions. So we have to involve the patients in taking any treatment decision, because this is lifetime commitment for good health. And the player, this is very much the patient, the director or the caregiver or the counselor is the clinician. Now, the third one is, there are a group of persons who are in the age group of 40 to 70. They're not too young, and they're not called old either. 40 to 75 years of age, these have to be evaluated by what is called atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease risk estimation. So, which you do not do at all clinically. None of you may be doing this risk estimation. The moment you see a patient, what is the cholesterol? 190, put statin now. That is not at all a way of a specialist treatment. So you have to undergo a 10-year atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease risk estimation and patient clinician discussion following that risk estimation. For what? To decide on the treatment like statin or aspirin or antihypertensive treatment, or look at the other risk enhancing factors, etc. And calcium scoring might come also in that particular risk estimation. So what is this risk estimation? So what did we learn? The first one is, it is a lifetime commitment for good health. Number two, it is an interaction between the patient and the caregiver. Number three, 40 to 75 years age group are the ones you can do something for them. Somebody who is beyond 75, the way in which you can modify their life and give good health and project a greater survival is rather limited. Nonetheless, 40 to 75 age group forms the crux of your patients who should be counseled and assessed for atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, ASCVD. Then, what is the fourth one? Intake of foods, which are vegetables, fruits, nuts, whole grains, lean vegetables, lean animal protein, fish, and minimize the intake of trans fat, red meat, processed meat, refined carbs, and sweetened beverages. I tell you to stop your microphones. Raviteja, what's wrong? Anything you wanted to say?
No.
Yeah, please close your mic. Okay. So the fourth one is an advice about the quality of diet that you eat and the quantity. And the fifth one is 150 minutes of in a week of physical activity, moderate intensity or a vigorous intensity 75 minutes. What is 150 minutes? By at least 5 days in a week, 2 days weekend off you can take, or you may forget, or you may have some other work to do. That comes to 30 minutes of moderate intensity activity per day. Okay. This is the fifth recommendation. The sixth one is type 2 diabetes mellitus. Lifestyle changes are essential. Type 2 diabetes mellitus DM is equivalent to CAD, risk equivalent. Okay. So if you want to treat diabetes with medication, metformin should be the first line, followed by SGLT receptors and or glucagon peptide receptors, SGLT, DPPs, dipeptyl peptidase receptor inhibitors. These are, but not the other drugs like acarbose or even your so-called glimepiride or sulfonylureas or anything. The first drug is metformin, add-on drug is SGLT or DPP. And there is not much of role for the other drugs straight away. Maybe they can be add-on drugs. Number 7, those who use tobacco strongly advised to quit. Very important recommendation. Aspirin is not to be used routinely. Earlier we used to say give aspirin as primary prevention, not for everyone, not for routinely. You have to assess the risk benefit of aspirin. Now, statin is the first line of treatment of primary prevention of AVSD. And what is statin? How we give, we will see later. Non-pharmacological interventions are recommended for adults with elevated blood pressure and hypertension. How do I treat blood pressure? With non-pharmacological interventions, not straight away with the drug. If it is not on target, by 3 months of non-pharmacological interventions, which include diet, exercise, low sodium, and then yes, meditation, yoga, and all that, then of course you start treating with the drug, which is to be less than 130 by 80 to the target. But what we do straight away, we put the drug. So somebody you see 145, you add a drug. No, that's not required. That's what exactly the recommendation says. Okay. Now here we will pause this recommendations presentation for a while and then go to another thing that this is the risk calculator. I'm going to show you the risk calculator because we said under recommendation 3 that everybody should be assessed for risk calculation. So what is that?
Okay. Now the thing is, if somebody is between 40 and 75 years of age, clinicians should routinely assess traditional cardiovascular risk factors, calculate the 10-year risk for AVSD.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Your patient is female, right? Okay.
Yes.
What is their age?
70.
70. Okay.
Yes.
What is their systolic blood pressure?
Is 140.
Okay. Is she on treatment for hypertension?
No,
No. Is she a diabetic?
no,
No. Smoker?
no, no.
Now here the race we'll keep it as white or other because there is no race for Indians in this calculator. Anything other than blacks we call it as white. Whether we are white or black doesn't matter about that. What is your cholesterol, total cholesterol?
220.
Huh?
220. 220.
Okay. HDL cholesterol?
Is 42.
42. Okay. So there is no mention about LDL cholesterol here or triglycerides. Can you tell me why?
Because it is a calculated value, no?
No. If you have total cholesterol and you have HDL cholesterol, 220 minus 42 is NHDL. NHDL is what? Non-HDL cholesterol. Non-HDL cholesterol are all thieves. HDL cholesterol is the police, right? So if you want to know the atherogenic lipoproteins, just subtract the total cholesterol, take total cholesterol and subtract HDL. That is good enough as though you are looking at the other one. Now we can say we will calculate. Okay. What did you get the answer?
10-year risk for
10-year risk for atherosclerotic vascular disease is 12.1. Okay. Without these risk factors, like whatever you said, hypertension or the 220 and all, it would have been 6.9 for that lady. Okay. Now you tell me, for this patient, do you prescribe statin or not?
Yes,
Whatever you have just now said.
I prescribe.
Prescribe
Yes.
or not prescribe?
Prescribe.
Why? For what?
Because we have to bring down
Because the cholesterol is high.
levels. Yeah.
Okay. Now let me say the cholesterol is normal. I will say, I will put it as 160. Okay. Will you now give?
Yes, because non-HDL cholesterol is high, no?
Okay. Non-HDL cholesterol is high. I will make it 50. Will you give now?
160 minus 50 is
110, 130 is the upper limit. It's only 110 now. Will you give now?
I may not, because there is a comorbid
No, that is
condition.
where now you see. 10.7% now.
Hmm.
Even then you have to give. That is the entire story. Majority of the time we will not give. What is the guidelines now? You see the guidelines. I'm going to share now again. A new share.
Yes,
Yes,
sir, no?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Yes, okay. So I'm going to type some numbers related to me straight away. And you can give any hypothetical patient of yours. Gender male, systolic blood pressure 124, and then age 69, and then receiving treatment for blood pressure, no. And then receiving treatment for has diabetes, no, of course. And then white or other, if we do not have the ethnicity, choose white, Caucasian, because there are only African Americans and whites. So we can choose Caucasian race, that is white race. And then cholesterol, my 174, and then never smoker. HDL cholesterol is 46. And this is the, so see, for example, a man, 69 years, 124, systolic, not on hypertension treatment, not diabetes, non-smoker, 174, 160. What is your impression? I mean, Tirumala, would you treat him with statin or not? This patient who is before your eyes. It's me only. Would you treat or not with statin? Would you give statin or not statin for this patient?
Since there are no comorbidities, I would like, I don't treat with statin right now.
That is where exactly you are wrong. Now you see, I calculate. Okay. So you want everything to happen, then only you want to give treatment. That is the attitude we all have. So the AVSD risk calculator points out the risk is 15.5% for 10-year cardiovascular disease. What is atherosclerotic cardiovascular event? Either a sudden death or myocardial infarction or any cardiovascular coronary artery disease or stroke. These are the four things. Cardiovascular disease in the form of sudden cardiac death, myocardial infarction, other coronary artery disease or stroke is called atherosclerotic vascular disease risk for 10 years. Next 10 years, this patient is likely to get 15.5% chance of developing one of the two. What is the risk if he is optimally there? One thing is we cannot control is his age and gender. So what is the optimal thing? Cholesterol, I said 177 or something. It wants to have 170. HDL 44 or 46. So it should be more than that. And systolic blood pressure is 124. 110 is the expected. Okay. Not taking medication, hypertension, diabetes, non-smoker, that's okay. Now you see, This is the patient's risk and this is the optimal risk. That means he is in a risk category of moderate risk. Anything more than 7.5 is moderate risk. 15.5 is moderate risk. Okay. This patient has elevated 10-year risk of more than 7.5, and that is why he is a candidate for statin therapy. So how much that is here I am showing you. So consider moderate to high intensity statin therapy if the risk is more than 7.5. So obviously I am on statin for the last 4 years or 5 years, 65 onwards, when the risk was more than 7.5. So what is moderate intensity statin? Atorvastatin 20 milligrams and rosuvastatin 10 milligrams. I'll take the higher number always, because lower number is people who cannot tolerate. Atorvastatin 20 or rosuvastatin 10. High intensity statin, atorvastatin 80 or 40, rosuvastatin 20 or 40. So remember what is high intensity, what is moderate intensity. Preferable rosuvastatin. Rosuvastatin 20 milligrams is high intensity, 10 milligrams is moderate intensity. Very high intensity, known heart disease, known myocardial infarction, you can give rosuvastatin 40 milligrams. So I tell you, this risk estimation is very essential. Let's go to another patient. Let's say she is a female. Okay, I am resetting all the values. And then she is a female and has systolic blood pressure 110, and then she is 58 years, let us say. And then all these are between 45 and 70. Not hypertensive, not diabetic, non-smoker, cholesterol is 160, total cholesterol. There is no mention of LDL, because once you know HDL, the balance is non-HDL. So let's say this one is 50. And now what did I do? I reduced the age and I brought the blood pressure into 110, changed the gender, and also made other values optimal. So I calculate. Now what is the risk? So 1.9. Her peers and 1.8%. And she does not require statin therapy because less than 7.5. Okay. Now let us say same woman, I would like to change her to diabetic. Yes. So if I say she's a diabetic, then immediately 3.4 straight away. Now I bring down the LDL to 35, HDL to 35, and total cholesterol to 200. Then you recalculate 5.5%. So what is happening? More important than the risk factors, the age and the gender are making a huge difference. I convert the same patient into male, then is 13.8. Okay. So you should know that you must use, since everything is optimal, I don't want to give cholesterol treatment, not correct. That is not as per the international recommendation. You have to assess the risk and then go. Okay, did you understand how to estimate the risk? There are 7-8 factors. One is the age, gender, treatment for hypertension, treatment for diabetes, smoker or not, HDL cholesterol, total cholesterol. So these are the variables you are asked there. So the 10 take-home points are very important. Almost the summary of today's talk. Just rushing through those 10 points. You see, promote healthy lifestyle throughout life. Then evaluate the social determinants and discuss with the treatment decisions with the patient. Number 3, these are all very strong recommendations. These are all green. That is, the evidence is very strong. Nothing is, in the red or orange zone. And then the 10-year risk, I showed you how to work on the 10-year risk. I'll give you the link for the 10-year calculator also. Then intake of what type of food to be eaten, that is the 4th one. The 5th one is exercise of 30 minutes a day, minimum exercise one has to do. Okay. And if they can do more, it is better. Then treatment of diabetes, metformin is the first line of treatment. SGLT, DPP are add-on drugs. glibenclamide, glimepiride, and sulfonylureas, repaglanide, acarbose are not really the useful drugs. Not controlled, insulin will be the other option. Okay. Then use of tobacco must be stopped. Aspirin not indiscriminately unless the risk benefit ratio is higher, particularly above 75. Do not straightaway rush to give aspirin because the risk of stroke is much higher in the elderly and bleeding can easily occur with aspirin. 9. Statin therapy is the most important thing, and I will tell you what are the 4 categories where you start statin very clearly. And non-pharmacological intervention should be tried for blood pressure first, then only drug treatment. These are all internationally validated. These are called pooled cohort studies. What is called the pooled cohort study calculators. That means the information is not from one country, it's from various countries, not from one study, many studies. So very important for you to understand that. Now, the green, I know the level of the rigor of the relationship, and then blue, deep blue is the level of evidence. Here all are deep blue. The first one is adults 40 to 70 years of age. Clinicians should routinely assess traditional cardiovascular risk factors by doing pooled cohort equations or PCE, and that is what we have shown you now. The 10-year risk assessment is a very strong recommendation. Green recommendation and blue the level of evidence. And then for between 20 and 39 years of age, it is reasonable to assess traditional risk factors at least every 4 to 6 years. Somebody is young patient every 4 to 6 years. Somebody whose risk is between borderline means 5 to 7.5. We have seen the other person, include myself, 7.5 to 20% is intermediate risk. Anybody more than 20 is very high risk of AVST. It is reasonable to use additional risk enhancing factor. If somebody is in the moderate or mild grade, you can add you can quantify the risk in a more precise way by looking at few other factors. What are those few other factors? I'll show you. Okay. Family history of premature coronary artery disease. What does it mean? Males less than any male member dying before 55 or a female blood relative. Family member means not wife and husband. They are unless they are related. So the son, daughter, father, mother, sister, brother, or the family. This one. Half brother of sister also are counted. Okay. Family history of premature coronary artery disease in the family. What is premature? Male member dying less than 55 or having a disease need not die. They can have the atherosclerotic vascular disease. That is good enough to qualify. Females less than 65, female relative. So primary hypercholesterolemia, LDL more than 160 to 189 or non-HDL. What is that? LDL plus the triglyceride component if you add, and that becomes the non-HDL. That is measure the total cholesterol, subtract the HDL. What you get is called the non-HDL cholesterol. This includes two components, LDL and then the TG component, TG by 5. Sorry, VLDL by 5. Yeah. So VLDL cholesterol, TG by 5 will be the VLDL, and that is added. So you have to always look for non-HDL cholesterol. Okay. Metabolic syndrome, which is all of you know what is metabolic syndrome, waist circumference, triglycerides, dysglycemia, hypertension, low HDLC, 5 factors. Waist circumference, triglycerides, blood pressure, then dysglycemia, HDLC less than 40 in men and less than 50 in women is a qualification. For metabolic syndrome, any 3 of those factors. With circumference cutoffs, this is 34 and 30, 36 for men and 32 for women. This in inches they cut off for the weight. Chronic kidney disease of at least CKD stage 2, 3, and 4, not 5. Less than 15 eGFR. We don't consider them for statin therapy for various reasons. Chronic inflammatory conditions like the autoimmune diseases or HIV or AIDS. In addition, ABI, ankle brachial index, and then the other factors, rheumatoid arthritis and lipoprotein A, which we will see in the next slide. So what do we see? Other risk enhancing factors are premature menopause. You say a lack of protection in the woman, and then pregnancy is associated with gestational diabetes, preeclampsia, or hypertension in the pregnancy. They are all risk enhancing factors. And high ethnicity race predilection. We are notorious to have a high risk of coronary artery disease and atherosclerotic vascular disease, Southeast Asian ancestry. Lipid biomarkers other than HDL, you can see HSCRP more than 2, LPA more than 50, ApoB more than 130, and ABI, ankle brachial index of less than 9. Normal being 1.2 to 0.9 is normal. Anything less than that is ABI, ankle brachial index positive for peripheral arterial disease more than this sclerosed vessels. Okay, so that is what you have to understand. So in addition to the risk calculator we used, we have to be focusing on family history of premature coronary artery disease, primary hypercholesterolemia, with a range of 160 to 189, or non-HDL 30 milligrams you add for the extra triglyceride component, because 150 is the triglyceride normal divided by 5 is 30. That you add to HDL, 160 becomes 190 and 189 becomes 219. That is the NHDL, which you always look for. Metabolic syndrome, chronic kidney disease, stage 2 to stage 4, 2, 3, 4, not 1 and 5, and chronic inflammatory conditions like what is listed here. In addition, premature menopause, ethnicity of Southeast Asian ancestry, lipid biomarkers like HSCRP, elevated LPA more than 50, elevated ApoB, which is atherogenic lipoprotein. ApoB is atherogenic lipoprotein. In fact, it is better to measure ApoB rather than LDL when facilities occur. You have, and then calculate the ratio of ApoA1 by B. ApoA1 by B should always be greater than 1. That means A1 proteins are HDL proteins, B proteins are atherogenic proteins. So if the protective proteins are more than the B proteins, then A1 by B is more than 1. That is no risk. And if that is less than 9.9, that means the B is more, then you use that risk, or absolute value of ApoB also you can use. Now, this slide in a way summarizes the entire talk. What is that? So I have a patient who is being assessed for atherosclerotic vascular disease. Okay. What will be the first step? What is the age of the patient? 0 to 19. The risk reduction starts there. Why do you want to assess atherosclerotic vascular disease in 0 to 19? That is where exactly the atherosclerosis starts. So you have to insist on lifestyle to prevent or reduce AVSD. Diagnosis of familial hypercholesterolemia occur in that age group, and immediately the familial groups have to be put on statin. Then comes to 20 to 39 age group. These are, they are not really at higher risk of disease, but in emphasizing lifestyle and also considering statin. If there is a family history of premature coronary artery disease, premature atherosclerotic vascular disease, or if their LDL is more than 160 milligrams, then all of them are not candidates. Estimate lifetime risk and see if the risk is less than 77.5%, don't worry. Even if the risk is less than 7.5%, is there a family history of premature coronary artery disease, a father, mother, or brother, they're suffering or dying of AVSD, or the primarily his cholesterol number is more than 160, he can be considered for statin therapy. Now, this is the most important group. And this is the vulnerable group 2 and the preventable group. They require prevention and your intervention for them. 40 to 75 age group. And LDL is more than 70. Please mute your microphones. All of you. Okay. More than 70, but less than 190. And then without diabetes mellitus, of course, the moment they have diabetes mellitus, they qualify for statin therapy. So these are the LDLC is more than 170 to 190. All right. But then they don't have diabetes, and the 10-year risk calculation has to be done and risk discussion. Okay. For them, so this group will get divided into 4. Those with low risk, those with borderline risk, those with intermediate risk, those with high risk. Less than 5, low risk, risk reduction, and only they're discussing about the lifestyle. Whereas 5 to 7.5%, this is orange. You see, the recommendation is not as strong as green. That means this can enhance present the risk discussion. This is a class 2B recommendation for 7 up to 7.5. 7.5 to 20, the range we calculated. There is no question. It is a very strong recommendation that risk enhances. Like statin has to be given, moderate and risk reductions should be done, and all risk enhancers should be estimated, and the LDL should be brought down by 30 to 50% by moderate intensity statin. What is moderate intensity statin? 20 milligrams of rosuvastatin, 10 milligrams of rosuvastatin, or 20 milligrams of atorvastatin. Okay, and more than 20, again class 1 recommendation, you should use high intensity statin, 20 milligrams of rosuvastatin or 40 milligrams of atorvastatin. Okay, if the decision is still uncertain, you are justified in looking at what are called calcium scoring. Okay, coronary artery calcium scoring, premature coronary artery disease in the family, cigarette smoking, and these will add on an information for you to decide whether you put them on intensity treatment. What is the calcium scoring? Anything 100 plus is an indication for statin therapy. Okay, everybody who is in that risk category, we can assess them for coronary artery calcium scoring and also look at the smoking and premature coronary artery. I hope it is clear. This slide is a summary slide of treatment. 0 to 19, risk assessment, stress on good quality healthcare, healthy lifestyle, and identify familial dyslipidemia. 20 to 39, no real indication to start statin therapy unless there is a statin, family history is there, or the atherosclerotic vascular disease, present history, and the LDL is more than 160 here. Okay, encourage lifestyle. 40 to 75, the main group where you have to treat, and these people are just the age is there, and then they are not diabetics, not hypertensive or anything. Then you do a AVSD risk stratification. Less than 5, only reinforcement of lifestyle. 5 to 7.5, recommendation is rather not very strong, but they can be considered for statin therapy, moderate intensity. More than 7.5, no question, they must get moderate intensity statin therapy. More than 20, high risk, they must get high intensity statin therapy. The things that aid me in diagnosis are calcium scoring, premature heart disease, coronary artery disease, and smoking. And here the list is given. Family history of premature coronary artery disease, persistently elevated cholesterol, CKD 2 to 4, metabolic syndrome, preeclampsia, and and then inflammatory diseases, Southeast Asian ancestry. These are the ones, any one or two of them will make you decide in favor of giving moderate intensity statin. Okay, lipid biomarkers, if you can get triglyceride more than 175, HSCRP more than 2, LPA more than 50, ApoB more than 130, ankle brachial less than 0.9. So these are the things you have to assess. And who is doing this? You see a cholesterol report and right or not right. Not at all correct. You are not following science if you just do that. That was 50 years back, not now. Now we have another group of patients whose LDL is more than 190. They don't have any risk factors, but that itself qualifies for high intensity test. So the category 1 are people who have more than 190 LDL cholesterol, straight away high intensity statin treatment, class 1 recommendation. The other group, they don't have much of cholesterol, that is between 70 and 190, but then they have diabetes and they are in the age group of 40 to 75. This is again class 1 recommendation. So the same person without diabetes, risk assessment. Here, no questions asked. Diabetes itself is coronary artery disease, straight away put them on statin. They deserve for moderate intensity. Then comes diabetes mellitus and 40-75. Risk assessment you have done, and you had risk assessment is somewhere in this group, then you give class 2B recommendation. And people who are more than 75, there are no guidelines whether to treat or not. You have to do clinical assessment and risk discussion, and then only decide the statin treatment or any other intensive treatment. The moment one crosses from 75, you are relaxed because there's nothing much you do by trying to modify the risk factors. The risk factor modification usually takes around 5 to 7 years for it to come to a lower risk. And that amount of time is not in the hand. And already certain amount of established coronary changes and then vascular changes have occurred. So you need to be careful with such group of patients, not jump on vigorous treatments for them. So this is a summary slide, and I don't know whether you have any diabetes specific, a long duration of the longer the duration of diabetes, the more they're qualified. More than 20 years of type 1 or more than 10 years of type 2. Albuminuria is also a predictor, that is microalbuminuria more than 30 micrograms. And then the EGFR is less than 60, that is grade 2 CKD2, 3 and 4. 1 and 3 do not, 1 and 5 do not qualify. They have retinopathy, neuropathy, and of course ABI. They are risk enhancers. So what will happen? Diabetes patients already they get moderate intensity treatment. The moment these are there, you shift them on to high intensity statin treatment. Okay. So lipoprotein transport and metabolism. The lipids are absorbed from the gut. Chylomicrons are formed. From these chylomicrons are broken down by lipoprotein lipase. They go to the skeletal muscle and liver. In the liver, the remnant particles of chylomicrons, after removing the triglyceride component, they're called the VLDL remnants. The VLDL remnants enter the liver, and the remnants will become the VLDL, and then VLDL is converted into intermediate density lipoprotein, and that to HDL. I mean LDL, and also the native HDL is formed, and that is a very small particle that acquires some amount of triglyceride and becomes the HDL particle. This HDL particle, has a reverse cholesterol transport in the liver and transports the cholesterol from the blood into the biliary canaliculi and then excretes the excess cholesterol. Cholesterol transfer proteins, they play a role in shifting the cholesterol between HDL and VLDL, HDL and IDL, and HDL and LDL. Okay, what does happen if the more of HDL is there? It travels in the blood, goes to the cells in the vessel wall, and then gets oxidized there. OX-LDL, this is called OX-LDL. This OX-LDL is deposited under the intima to form the plaque. that has to be scavenged out by the HDL. So that will be pulled out by the HDL from the vascular intima. That is why HDL is a protective cholesterol. That's why it is called reverse cholesterol transport. It is there. Okay. This is about transport. And then you know that the treatment with statin, high intensity statin, high intensity plus AGT may be PCSK9 inhibitors plus high intensity like that, you know, different levels. You can reduce 30% from the baseline, 50, 65, 60, 75, 80%. That somebody has got 100 and 200, let us say. 85% reduction means his cholesterol will become 30. The lower, the better. Try to, high risk people, try to keep it below 55. That is today's recommendation. So percent risk reduction, what is the baseline LDL? Then based on that, you applied the percent reduction onto the baseline LDL, you get absolute reduction, and then the relative risk reduction. What is the baseline risk? And then the relative risk reduction. That becomes the absolute risk reduction. How do I know? I calculate the baseline LDL, I calculate the baseline risk. Both are available to me. This is from the lab, this is from my calculator, and I know what, if I use, what will be the percentage reduction I get, and I can easily work out the absolute risk reduction. Okay. So for example, here you have a baseline LDL 200 and percentage reduction. I applied an intensity treatment of 50%, then absolute risk reduction will be 100. And then my baseline risk is, let's say 10. And then this becomes, you know, if you reduce that risk, so you have brought down from 200 to this, so 10 becomes 5%. Okay, so that's how you work out. So you see, this is a little about the cholesterol synthesis by HMG coenzyme A intracellular. These slides are our slides from here onwards. These slides are our slides, and hitherto it were the slides of the two organizations. Now you can see HDL cholesterol synthesis is by HMG coenzyme A. Intracellular cholesterol is formed, then it will be the LDL receptors, B and B2E receptors. B receptors are very affinity for the LDL, then VLDL remnants are formed, and you have the ApoB, ApoE, and these ones, and then there is a hepatocyte and systemic circulation. In the hepatocyte, how does the statins act, the mechanisms of action? In the liver, reduce the hepatic cholesterol synthesis. They inhibit this enzyme, or lowering the intracellular cholesterol. This comes down. Upregulation of the LDL receptor. What is upregulation? LDL trapping receptors. These receptors in the liver, they trap the circulating LDL. When the receptors are upregulated, number of particles trapped in the liver are more, and they are held by their hand and pushed into the biliary canaliculi for excretion, and increase the uptake from non-HDL from circulation. So here in the circulation, what happened? Increase the LDL receptor mediated hepatic uptake of LDL, VLDL remnants, reduce the serum LDL C level, and reduce the remnants, and reduce the IDL. All three are atherogenic lipoprotein. Okay. Now, these are mediated by the apoprotein B. That's why we measure apoprotein B. Okay. These are the various mechanisms of action of statin. So I'm using HMG co-reductor inhibitor, a statin. The statin goes there. It negatively affects the enzyme there. Acetyl coenzyme A has to be converted into mevalonate for cholesterol synthesis, and that step is blocked. Mevalonate is not there, so much so it cannot synthesize cholesterol. So synthesis level is reduced. Then also the statins go and activate the SREBP. Activation SREBPs, they increase the expression of LDLs, And that means more receptors are available for clearance. That means plasma LDL clearance increased, circulating LDL is decreased. One, the synthesis is decreased. Two, the excretion is increased. Both ways, it is a beautiful positive effect. Okay. Now, so this you would have seen sometimes earlier, and then you see here HMG CoA, that is HMG CoA reductase is the enzyme. This acetyl coenzyme A and acetyl coenzyme A are the substrates. These two combine to form malate. Acetyl coenzyme A plus acetyl coenzyme A together will give rise to malonate through the action of HMG CoA reductase enzyme, and that is blocked by our statin. Okay. So this malonate, once it is formed, this isopentenyl pyrophosphate, farnesyl pyrophosphate, geranyl pyrophosphate, and this becomes a sequelin. Sequelin becomes cholesterol. This is the cholesterol synthesis pathway. So acetyl coenzyme A plus acetyl coenzyme A gets converted into malonate, malonate to isopentenyl pyrophosphate, isopentenyl to farnesyl pyrophosphate, farnesyl pyrophosphate to sequelin, sequelin to cholesterol. So our drug blocks here, so cholesterol synthesis is inhibited. So then there is another molecule called the geranyl pyrophosphate. This geranyl pyrophosphate and farnesyl pyrophosphate, these are called prenylated proteins. Prenylated proteins means the pyrophosphate moiety is there, prenylated protein, farnesylated protein, RAS, laminin, etc. are formed. Geranylated proteins are RHO, R small ab and R small ac are also very important for vascular inflammation, adhesion, migration, proliferation, apoptosis, matrix degeneration, and regulation. So, statins not only help you through this pathway, they also help you to reduce all this. So statins are beautiful anti-inflammatory agents. Apart from anti-cholesterolemic effect, they reduce the prenylated proteins. Prenylated proteins are the pathways for cellular adhesion, migration particles, proliferation of the intima, cellular apoptosis, matrix degradation, and procoagulation and pro-inflammation. Okay. Now, the same thing. Now, this you need to understand a little bit here. So, side effects of cholesterol, muscle side effects are there when you have less of this prenylated thing, and these prenylated things are required for ubiquinone. This ubiquinone is required for the muscle integrity, and statin myopathy is probably because of lack of ubiquinone. So how you can treat? By giving ubiquinone from outside. It's available in the form of carnitine, L-carnitine, and ubiquinone are available coenzyme Q, L-carnitine. These will supply the ubiquinone. You can treat statin-related side effects because the ubiquinone is lower for that reason. So non-lipid effects, this can be a short notes for you. What are the non-lipid effects of statin? Improvement in endothelial function, oxidative property, antioxidative property, anti-inflammatory property, anti-proliferative, anti-thrombotic, neoangiogenesis. We have seen how they occur through the prenylated proteins. And then non-lipid actions of statin, inhibition of HTEC, that is the HMG coenzyme A, and then blocking the synthesis of geranylated and prenylated proteins, decreased proliferation, migration of smooth muscle cells, farnesylated proteins are decreased, nuclear factor kappa B, which we have seen in that slide almost. So the conclusions about statins: statins reduce the incidence of major coronary acute coronary events, reduce the need for PTCA and CABG. Studies have shown that people who are on statin, they don't have to go for these procedures, reduce the incidence of stroke and PAD and amputation, potential for statins is not fully realized, underutilized, underdosed in many practices. They give 10 milligrams of atorvastatin even after myocardial infarction, which is rather useless. If somebody has suffered an infarction post-discharge, you must get high-intensity statin, 40 milligrams of rosuvastatin. Not able to tolerate, 25, 30 milligrams. Otherwise, no point in giving 10 ml as though you are giving or not giving 10 milligrams of atorvastatin. Statins are very safe in vast majority of the patients. Strongest evidence base for the last 40 years is established. Innumerable number of studies, more than 200 RCTs, selected groups of patients. Of course, caution is needed. This is the conclusion, not by me, by the Statin Advisory Board, International Statin Advisory Board. Okay, statins beyond lipid lowering. This is important. Can they do anything other than lipid lowering? Yes, increase endothelial function. Nitric oxide improves the endothelial function, regresses the atheroma, regresses the plaque burden, increases the expression of TPA1, decreases the expression of endothelin, which is a vasoconstrictor. Plaque stabilization is very important and reduces oxidative stress, reduces hsCRP, TNF alpha, interleukin 6, which are the inflammatory markers, anti-inflammatory at the site of the plaque, inhibit platelet function. They are antiplatelet also, antiplatelet that like your clopidogrel and aspirin, platelet aggregation and antithrombotic. All these occur when not after lowering the cholesterol. This takes 3 to 6 months to get cholesterol reduction, but these occur well before the cholesterol levels are lowered. So what is the message? Statins must be used. There's no doubt. How much you use and whom you use, the entire presentation. So I'm going to stop here.
Thank you all. Any questions?
Any questions in the chat box?
Yeah, Dr. Tele has said, excellent presentation. Thank you, Dr. Tele, sir. I'm grateful to you.
Tips for reducing triglyceride.
Triglyceride is not the target. Triglyceride is not the target. Unless it is beyond 500, don't worry about it. Beyond 500, you have to treat because acute pancreatitis is the risk. Okay? If you still want to treat triglyceride, you add a little bit of, N3 fatty acids, which are very good in reducing triglyceride. Okay? Or you use niacin. Fibrate is not the drug that is being recommended now. Niacin and N3 fatty acids. Now, what I request all our doctors, I request you is please follow the international recommendations. Just don't embark on the just cholesterol value and brush away the patient. It doesn't require. Because many of the time I see the patient 170 cholesterol. Okay, no statin required. You are allowing them to go into Dr. Tele's hands tomorrow. Within no time, he will be an angiogram or a bypass patient. You want to create more patients for Dr. Tele and you want to keep them with you.
Sharmaji, just one question, Sharmaji. We do find all the cardiologists, the other practitioners writing fenofibrate when the triglycerides level is more than 300, things like that. And they continue to do that and they monitor very well. So just want to know the role of fenofibrate.
Present recommendations, sir. If you use a good intensity statin, let us say 20 milligrams of rosuvastatin, it will reduce the triglyceride by itself. You do not require to do anything else. In addition, the carbohydrates, not fat. Triglycerides are the deposit form of energy. If you reduce the carbohydrate, triglycerides will come down. The only indication for direct treatment is if it is more than 500, you have to interfere with the triglyceride. Here, my take is the guidelines are guidelines. Ultimately, it is in your hand. How do you manage your patient? Always add a little fibrate. Nothing is going to go wrong. But only thing is don't combine and statin and fibrate at the same time. What will happen? The myopathy will be precipitated. Give statin in the night and give fibrate in the morning. Don't use a combination, right? If you want to use a combination, you are going to monitor them more closely. Okay, another thing is weight reduction itself will reduce the triglyceride. Carbohydrate reduction will reduce the triglyceride. As Dr. Pillai said, if the patient is given good statin, you can say, yes, this is the medicine for triglyceride. It will work, you take. We can say that. And there's nothing wrong in adding, say, 160 milligrams of fenofibrate or whatever it is. Fine, very nice. And you yourself figure out, doctors, what you do is you manipulate the numbers there and see how the risk can be brought down. You can show the patient, if you do this, your risk will come down. He will do that. If you bring the cholesterol down, your risk is going to go down like this. If you bring your blood pressure down, the risk is going to go down. I use the risk calculator to motivate the patient, not only to diagnose the patient. So use the risk calculators liberally. I'm going to share the entire presentation. Actually, I have another 40 slides associated, which I'm using for PG teaching. That also I will share with you. And the latest reference of 2021 recommendations. They are not come in the form of guidelines, but the review article is there. That article also I'm going to share with you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Fantastic. Very good.
Excellent presentation, sir. It was, in fact, it was
So
very
kind of you,
excellent.
sir, all of you.
Thank you.
Excellent presentation, sir. In fact, so many details about statins. In many of the doctors do not know anything about the statins, and you have been telling right from the beginning how statins are acting and how important it is to use for the general public. Excellent, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
There is one bottom line for all these things, sir. Guidelines will work only when practiced.
Yeah.
Guidelines will work only when practiced.